It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey, hey, my fearsome fabulous women. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. I'm Kelly Hint, your feminist life coach and psychotherapist, here to give you the unfiltered truth, practical strategies, and a whole lot of empowerment. Today we're tackling a topic that is exhausting. Literally. We are talking about emotional labor, the invisible, unpaid, and often unacknowledged work that women do to keep the world running smoothly. From managing everyone's feelings to keeping track of family schedules to handling the endless mental load of keeping things together. This is a trap that drains our energy, our joy, and sometimes our sanity. But don't worry, we're not just calling it out, we're getting you out of it. So grab your coffee, your matcha, or your wine, no judgment here, and let's get into it. So, what the hell is emotional labor anyway? Let's define this beast. Emotional labor is the mental and emotional effort required to manage relationships, smooth over conflicts, anticipate needs, and keep things running in both personal and professional spaces. It's answering what's for dinner when no one else is thinking about it. It's being the one who remembers birthdays, noticing when a friend is upset, making sure there's a backup plan for every possible disaster, and even maintaining the emotional atmosphere in a room so that everyone feels comfortable. It's checking in on people's feelings, mediating conflicts before they escalate, and making sure harmony in the social setting is preserved. And let's be clear, it's work. It's real, it's exhausting, and often completely unacknowledged labor that disproportionately falls on women's shoulders. Psychologist Arlie Hochschild first introduced this term in the 1980s, originally referring to emotional regulation in the workplace, specifically the way service workers had to manage their emotions to keep customers happy. Since then, the concept has evolved to highlight how women in particular carry this burden in nearly every aspect of life, from households to friendships to office dynamics. And guess what? It's often unpaid, unrecognized, and expected, making it one of the most insidious forms of invisible labor that drains women's time, energy, and well-being. I'm sure that this is resonating for so many of you right now. And here's the problem. Because emotional labor is invisible, it's rarely acknowledged. That means we're doing it on top of everything else. Our careers, our households, our relationships, without a second thought from those benefiting from it. It's like running an unpaid full-time job in the background of our lives, where we are expected to preemptively smooth out conflicts, absorb other people's stress, and ensure that everything runs seamlessly. Society has conditioned women to believe this work is just a part of who we are, an innate feminine duty. But let's set the record straight. It is not a biological trait, and it's certainly not our sole responsibility. This is learned, expected, and deeply ingrained, but it's also something that we can unlearn and redistribute. Or redistribute? Never really thought about the pronunciation of that word before. Okay, before my scatterbrainness takes us down a rabbit hole, let's start talking about how the emotional labor trap actually drains us. Because let's be real, this is why we're exhausted. Constantly carrying the emotional weight of others. It leads to burnout, resentment, and even physical health issues like anxiety, insomnia, and chronic stress. It's like having a phone with too many apps running in the background. Your battery drains, but no one sees what's eating up all that energy. And actually, sometimes we don't even understand it ourselves. We don't know why. I can't tell you how many women I work with every single day that are exhausted. And some of them are unable to pinpoint why. And when we do some digging, it's all of the emotional labor that they're doing that they didn't even recognize. And let's talk about relationships. Emotional labor is a silent killer of connection. When one person is always the planner, the peacemaker, the problem solver, and the emotional sponge, resentment builds like an unspoken storm. It's not just in romantic partnerships. It's in friendships, family dynamics, and even in the workplace. The burden of managing the emotional landscape often falls on women. And that creates an imbalance that leaves us drained while others remain blissfully unaware of the weight that we are carrying. This cycle is not sustainable, and the only way to break it is to redistribute the responsibility of emotional upkeep. And here's the kicker. Society tells us that this is just what women do, that it's natural, that it's expected. But here's the truth. Just because we can does not mean that we should. So, how do we get out of this cycle? How do we break free and reclaim our energy? Well, here's your action plan. The first step is to recognize it. Start identifying where emotional labor shows up in your life. Write it down. Put it in your phone, in your notepad on your phone. Keep a journal for 1 week and document every single time you manage someone else's emotions, anticipate their needs, or pick up the slack. You will be shocked at how much you're doing without even realizing it. And then the next step is to redistribute the load. This means, here we go, setting boundaries and making it clear that you are not the default emotional caretaker. And I know this is going to make some of you uncomfortable because it's almost natural that we do this now. It feels like we're going against the grain because it has become an expected part of our everyday lives, and so it feels natural, but it's not. If your partner, family, or coworkers expect you to handle everything, I'm sorry, but it is time for a conversation. And here's the next piece, the next step. Use the magic phrase, "I trust you to handle it." Ooh, I wonder how much discomfort that's bringing up in people when you think of saying that to someone instead of handling it yourself. Instead of picking up the slack, say this. Delegation is not just about tasks, it's about emotional responsibility too. So if someone asks you to remind them of something, redirect that responsibility. If they expect you to manage a situation, step back and let them handle it. And again, for those of you who have been cleaning up other people's messes for the majority of your lives, this is not going to feel good. But you know what? Growth and change is sometimes incredibly uncomfortable. But when you get to the other side of it, it is so incredibly rewarding. And then the next piece we have here, the next step, is to drop the guilt. Good luck on this one, because women are conditioned to believe that saying no or stepping back makes us selfish. That is a lie from the very pit of hell. Prioritizing yourself is not neglecting others. It's ensuring that you have the energy to show up as your best self. I have used the airplane analogy a million times in my sessions with people pleasers. And I tell them, when you go on an airplane and the flight attendant is going over all the rules, they tell you, if you are traveling with children and or the elderly, you need to secure your mask first if the cabin loses pressure. You have to put the mask on yourself first. Because if you're so busy putting the mask on your child or your elderly person that you're traveling with, you're probably going to pass out. And how much good are you going to be to them then? This is the same concept. Let go of the guilt, because and this may make you feel uncomfortable. If you're spreading yourself thin, you are not kicking ass in all areas of life like you think you are. This one was a very difficult concept for me personally to believe, and it hurt when I thought about it, but I often, so raising my hand here, I'm guilty, I'm very guilty of this. I often spread myself thin. I think that I can do anything that I set my mind to, right? I get that very empowered attitude. So I disguise all of this with empowerment. And I tell myself, oh, I'm a badass. I can do this. I can do that. I can do it all. Well, you know what? Somehow, in the middle of all that, I lose myself. And when I'm so busy doing everything because I can, I forget that I am just draining myself. I'm bleeding myself dry, giving to others. And it kind of happens because of my profession also, right? I spend all day long, 8 hours a day, giving of myself. I choose to do this. I have no regret over that, right? I'm going to put that right out there. I love what I do. Being a therapist and a coach has been the most rewarding career that I've ever had, and I will never go back. I love what I do. However, it's easy for me to get caught in the trap of continuously giving of myself and continuously putting my stuff aside. A good example is when my dog passed away. I had to put my emotions in a little box and put that box on the shelf so that I could be present for the people that I was working with. And in the past, I would keep that box up there and I would just keep going. And I wouldn't take the box down and unpack it and feel the feelings. That's not good. So what I did this time around, when I lost my girl, she was a very important rescue for me. She was a pit bull that I rescued from a shelter in Rochester, and she was scared of everything. She was very damaged, emotionally, psychologically. And I put a lot of my time and effort into being not just the most responsible pit bull parent, but, nurturing her and helping her to achieve a better life. And so I had her for almost 8 years, and she passed away suddenly. We came home and she had passed in her bed. She wasn't sick or anything. And normally what I would do is put that in a little box on the shelf, like I'd said earlier, and I would just go about my day. But this time, she passed on a Saturday. So I was lucky enough to have that time where I didn't have to put my emotions aside. And I ugly cried for a couple days. And then when Monday came, I put the emotions in a box, put the box on the shelf, went about my day with the people that I was working with. But then at the end of my day, when I was done working, I took the box back down. And that was something different. I have gotten much better about taking the box back and allowing myself that time to grieve. And that is what is healthiest for me. Because obviously, as a therapist, I can't be a hot mess in sessions with people. I can't be ugly crying about my dog when they are working through their own traumas, tragedies, and stressors, right? Like I need to be, I need to be present for them. So part of my requirement for this job is to be able to regulate my own emotions and put my personal stuff aside for that 50-minute session that I'm working with people. And so, like I said, I have allowed myself more time in my spare time. My boundaries are so much better. And I think it's because I'm a therapist that I'm able to set and enforce such healthy boundaries, because I help other people do it all the time. So I have really good boundaries now about myself, and I don't have guilt about it. I can't tell you how many times people will text me and ask for an appointment, like on a weekend or a day that I'm not working. And when I tell them I do not have the availability, I no longer feel guilty about that. But I wasn't always like that. I used to feel very guilty when I couldn't accommodate everyone. And you know what that is? That is a side effect of continuous emotional labor. And so that's why I'm saying there are probably so many of you listening right now that don't even know that this is a thing, that you just think that you're supposed to do all of this. But no, I promise you, you're not. You deserve a damn break. You get to say no. Which brings us to that next step, the B word that you love hearing about. The next step to reclaiming your freedom is enforcing boundaries like a boss. Because, as we've talked about before, boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They are about saying yes to you. They are about being consistent with that no. Because you are not responsible for managing everyone else's feelings. If someone gets upset because you're not carrying their load anymore, I'm sorry, but that is their problem, not yours. That is their problem to get over. And moving on to this next step, prioritize rest and joy. Again, something that I have had to work very hard at. Because reclaiming your energy means choosing activities that replenish you. Not just making sure you're doing the laundry and getting everything done in between work days. Think about what lights you up. Make time for that. Guilt-free. And no, rest is not lazy. Rest is necessary. And how about reclaiming that energy in the work environment? This next step is to speak up at work. Because emotional labor is not just a home issue. It is a workplace issue too. If you're the one always planning office birthdays or smoothing over interpersonal conflicts among coworkers or mentoring new hires without recognition, it's time to start advocating for change. Ask for compensation. Call out the imbalance. Don't always be the one to jump in to volunteer to take care of the unpaid stuff. Of course, like some people love planning office birthdays, but let me tell you, as somebody who hates celebrating birthdays, not everybody loves it. I used to be forced to participate in birthday celebrations, and for me, I didn't want my birthday celebrated. It was not anything that I was interested in. And that's not to take away from people who do. If you love it, do it. But can we please stop forcing people to do things that are extracurricular? Because I'm telling you, there are reasons behind my dislike of birthday celebrations that are no one's business. And I shouldn't have to, I shouldn't have to tell anyone why it's not something that I don't enjoy. So be aware of that. And then this last step here, surround yourself with supportive people. Find a community of women who get it. There are so many of us out here. We get the emotional labor. We are drained, absolutely drained, and we would love to help lift you up, to help unburden that emotional labor from your shoulders. Whether it's a friend, a therapist, or an online group. I mean, Hint Hive podcast Facebook group, anyone? Link is in the description. Surrounding yourself with people who validate your experiences, it's not just nice, it is essential. If you want to keep showing up for others, it is essential to find your group of people who you can lean on, who you can exchange energies with instead of always being drained. All right, let's ground this conversation with our quote of the week. This one comes from Bell Hooks. Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving. When we can be alone, we can be with others without using them as a means of escape. Hell yes, it is. Ladies, the world benefits when women are whole, not when we are running on fumes. Your worth is not tied to how much you do for others. You deserve rest, respect, and reciprocity. All right, listeners, now I want to hear from you. What is one area of emotional labor that you are ready to release? What is the first step that you are going to take this week to shift that balance? Feel free to share your thoughts in our Hint Hive Facebook group. Again, the link is in the podcast episode description. In that group, we keep the conversation going and support each other in this revolution of self-preservation. And of course, if this episode hit home, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Or who knows, maybe you have your partner listen to this episode to give them a deeper understanding of the emotional labor that you are engaging in. Because remember, reclaiming your energy isn't just good for you, it is a radical act of self-love. Until next time, my friends, take up space, set those boundaries, and stay unstoppable. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.